Welcome. Up till now, we have seen initial introduction of block diagram representation. Then we have seen 8 rules for block diagram reduction. Then we have seen some problems by applying the block diagram reduction rules. We have solved different problems. Today also we will see different problems by applying block diagram reduction rules. Now, this is the problem. Draw the diagram. These two summing points are there, 1, 2, this is third summing point. Block G1 is there between these two summing points. Then this block G2, block G3. This is the takeoff point. Then this is also another takeoff point. This is also another takeoff point. Now here there is no block on this line. Therefore you have to consider that here this line is known as unity feedback, or the value of the block on this line is equal to 1. Now draw the diagram. We will apply the different rules. Therefore, yesterday we have seen which rules, what is the procedure to solve the block diagram. There are different rules. Associative law, that is interchanging of summing points, blocks in series, blocks in parallel. Then shifting takeoff point behind the block, shifting takeoff point after the block, shifting summing point behind the block, shifting summing point after the block, and this rule number 8 is reducing minor feedback loop. Therefore, every time we have to remember these 8 rules and we have to think which rule we can apply so that the block diagram problems can be solved. Now here these two blocks G1, G2 are not in series. Also this H1 is not forming any feedback loop with G1, G2 or this summing point, because between this summing point and block G2, block G1 is there and this summing point is there. Therefore this diagram is somewhat complicated. Therefore we have to solve it. Therefore what we will do, we will shift this takeoff point after this block G3. We will shift takeoff point after this block G3. Therefore shifting takeoff point after block G3. Therefore we have shifted whatever takeoff point present here after the block G3. Therefore whenever we are going to shift the takeoff point after the block, we have to add a block having the value reciprocal of that block. Therefore we have added a block having the value reciprocal of this G3, that is 1 upon G3, in line with H1. Therefore because of this, what will happen, the G2 and G3, they will become in series. They will become blocks in series. Therefore we will apply that blocks in series. Therefore what is blocks in series? These two blocks are getting multiplied with each other. Therefore one single block will be there, that is G2, G3. Now this G2, G3 block, this H2 block and this summing point, they are forming minor feedback loop. They are forming minor feedback loop. Now this feedback is negative here. Signal sign of the feedback signal is negative. Therefore G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2, that single block will be formed here. See that G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2. Now this block will be in series with block G1. This block will be in series with block G1. Therefore these two blocks are getting multiplied with each other because these two blocks are in series now. Therefore the one resultant block will be of G1, G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2. Therefore G1, G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2. This single block will form. Now this block and this H1 upon G3 block, they will be forming a minor feedback loop. Therefore, we will solve this minor feedback loop and one single block will be formed here. Therefore, what is that value? G1, G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 divided by 1 plus. Why positive sign is here? Because feedback signal was negative. 1 plus G1, G2, G3 into H1 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 into G3. Now this G3, G3 will get cancelled. Now this block and this feedback signal, having this feedback signal is known as unity feedback because there is no block present here. They are forming minor feedback loop. Therefore, we will solve this minor feedback loop. Therefore, transfer function, that is C upon R, is equal to G1, G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 divided by 1 plus G1, G2, H1 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 divided by 1 plus into bracket G1, G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 divided by 1 plus G1, G2, H1 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 into 1. This one is due to that unity feedback. Now, therefore, by solving, what will happen? This by cross multiplication, this denominator is same everywhere. Therefore, this will get cancelled, and we will getting final transfer function as G1, G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 plus G1, G2, H1 divided by 1 plus G1, G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 plus G1, G2, H1. Again, by doing cross multiplication, we will simplify G1, G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 plus G1, G2, H1 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 plus G1, G2, H1 plus G1, G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 plus G1, G2, H1. Now this denominator and this denominator will get cancelled. Therefore, transfer function is equal to G1, G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, H2 plus G1, G2, H1 plus G1, G2, G3. This is the final value. Now we will see next problem. Therefore, draw this diagram. Two summing points are there. Blocks are there: G1, G2, G3, H2, G4, H1. Input R, output C. Therefore, we will shift this takeoff point behind the block G2. Whenever we are shifting takeoff point behind the block G2, we have to add this value. We have to add a block having the same value in line with H2. Therefore, G2 block will add here in line with H2. See that we have shifted this takeoff point which was presented to the here, so that this G2 and G3 will be in parallel, and this H2 and G2 will be in series, and this G4 and H1 and this summing point, they will form minor feedback loop. Therefore, here G2, H2 will be there, here G2 plus G3 will be there, and here block will be 1 G4 divided by 1 plus H1 into G4. See that G1, here G2, H2, G2 plus G3, then G4 divided by 1 plus G4, H1. Now, this summing point, this block G1 and this block G2, H2, they are forming minor feedback loop. Therefore, we will solve this. What will be its value? G1 divided by 1 plus G1, G2, H2. See that G1 divided by 1 plus G1, G2, H2. This block will form. Now this block is in series with this other two blocks, that is G2 plus G3 and G4 divided by 1 plus G4, H1. Therefore, they will get multiplied with each other. Therefore, G1 into G2 plus G3 into G4 divided by 1 plus G1, G2, H2 into 1 plus G4, H1, and this is known as unity feedback. Now this is also minor feedback loop with unity feedback. Therefore we will solve this minor feedback loop. Therefore reducing minor feedback loop transfer function C upon R is equal to G1 G4 into bracket G2 plus G3 divided by 1 plus G1 G2 H2 into 1 plus G4 H1 divided by 1 plus G1 G4 into G1 plus G2 plus G3 divided by 1 plus G1 G2 H2 into 1 plus G4 H1 into 1. Therefore we will do the cross multiplication so that these two terms in the brackets, they will get cancelled with each other. Therefore they are cancelled with each other, and the final solution we are getting it as G1 G4 into bracket G2 plus G3 divided by 1 plus G1 G2 H2 into 1 plus G4 H1 plus G1 G4 into G2 plus G3. This is the final solution. Now next problem. Draw this diagram. In this diagram, this first summing point is there. After that, block G1, G3, G2. This is the summing point. This is the summing point. Block G4. Then this block H1, block H2. R is the input. C is the output. Now we will shift this summing point behind the block G2. We will shift this summing point behind the block G2 here. Therefore, what is first step? Shifting of summing point behind the block G2, so that this G2 and G4, they will be in series. And this arrow will also shift with the help of this, along with this summing point. Therefore we have shifted. Whenever we are going to shift this, therefore we have to add a block in line with G3. When we are going to shift summing point behind the block, we have to add a block reciprocal of the value of the block. Therefore this is nothing but G3. Here we have added another block, that is 1 upon G2, because we have shifted summing point behind G2. Now because of this shifting, what is going to happen? G2 and G4 will become, they will become in series. In the same way, G3 and 1 upon G2, they will also become blocks in series. Therefore here G2 G4 block will be there, and here G3 upon G2 block will be there, and these two summing points will shift by using associative law. Therefore G3 upon G2, then we have shifted that summing point, then this G1, then this G2 G4 H1. Now this forms blocks in parallel because the signals coming from these two blocks are in the same direction. This is forming minor feedback loop. Therefore here G1 plus G3 plus G2, and here G2 G4 divided by 1 plus H1 G2 G4. This is forming, this will be the one block here. Therefore same condition here, G3 upon G2 plus G1 and G2 plus and G2 into G4 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1, and here another block will be there, that is H2 block is present. Now these two blocks are in series, they are getting multiplied with each other. Therefore G3 G2 plus G1 into G2 G4 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1, and this feedback signal is there, it is H2. Now this is forming again minor feedback loop. We will solve this minor feedback loop. Therefore transfer function Cs upon Rs is equal to G3 upon G2 plus G1 into bracket G2 G4 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1 divided by 1 plus into bracket G3 upon G2 plus G1 into G2 G4 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1 into H2. Therefore we will simplify this by doing cross multiplication. Therefore G3 plus G1 G2 divided by G2 into G2 G4 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1 divided by 1 plus G3 plus G1 G2 divided by G2 into G1 G2 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1 into H2. G2 G2 will get cancelled. Therefore G3 plus G1 G2 into G4 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1 divided by 1 plus G3 plus G1 G2 into G1 H2 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1. Therefore G3 plus G1 G2 into G4 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1 plus G3 plus G1 G2 into G1 H2 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1. Therefore these two brackets will get cancelled, these two denominators. Therefore final solution we are getting it as CS upon RS is equal to G4 into bracket G3 plus G1 G2 divided by 1 plus G2 G4 H1 plus G3 plus G1 G2 into G1 H2. Now we will see next problem. Therefore draw this diagram. Now in this problem, this is the common summing point of these blocks in parallel and this is minor feedback loop. Therefore we will solve this. This is the common summing point for these two blocks and for these two blocks also. Therefore these two blocks are in parallel and these G2 and H1 they are forming feedback loop with this summing point. Therefore we will split. What we will do, we will split this summing point. Therefore we have splitted the summing point. Therefore these G1 G4 they are blocks in parallel and G2 H1 they are forming minor feedback loop by splitting. Therefore resultant block will be here G1 plus G4, here G2 divided by 1 plus G2 H1. Therefore G1 plus G4, here G2 divided by 1 plus G2 H1, and this is block G3. Now all these three blocks are in series, therefore they will get multiplied with each other. Therefore G1 G4 into G2 G3 divided by 1 plus G2 H1 into H2. Now these two blocks, this block and this block H2 along with this summing point, they are forming minor feedback loop. Therefore we will solve this. Therefore transfer function is equal to G2 G3 divided by G1 plus G2 divided by 1 plus G2 H1 divided by 1 plus G2 G3 into G1 plus G4 divided by 1 plus G2 H1 into H2. Therefore by doing cross multiplication, this 1 plus G2 H1 1 plus G2 H1 they will get cancelled. Therefore transfer function is equal to G2 G3 into bracket G1 plus G4 divided by 1 plus G2 H1 plus G2 G3 into H2 divided by G1 plus G4. This is the final answer. Now next problem. Therefore draw this diagram. Summing point is there, block G1, again summing point, block G2, summing point, block G3, block G4, block H3, block H1, block H2. R is the input, C is the output. Now by observing the diagram, what we will do? We will shift this summing point after the block G4. Therefore we will add one block in line with the H2. See here, we have shifted the takeoff point from this point to this point after the block G4. Therefore we have added a block having the reciprocal of the value of the block. Therefore 1 upon G4 block we have added in line with H2. Because of this, what will happen? G3 and G4 will become blocks in series, and this H2 into 1 upon G4, these two blocks also will become blocks in series. Therefore they will get multiplied with each other. Therefore G3 G4 and H2 upon G4, these two blocks are formed. Now this G3 G4 and H3 along with this summing point, they are forming minor feedback loop. Therefore its equivalent block will be G3 G4 divided by 1 plus G3 G4 H3. Therefore same value will be here, G3 G4 divided by 1 plus G3 G4 H3. Now this block along with G2, they are in series, they will get multiplied with each other. Therefore G2 G3 G4 divided by 1 plus G3 G4 H3. Now this block and H2 upon G4, this block along with this sum point, they are forming minor feedback loop. Therefore we will solve this minor feedback loop. G2 G3 G4 divided by 1 plus G3 G4 H3 divided by 1 plus G2 G3 G4 divided by 1 plus G3 G4 H3 into H2 upon G4. Now this block and this block G1, they are in series, therefore they will get multiplied with each other. Therefore G1, G2, G3, therefore first of all we will simplify this block we will simplify first of all, and then we will multiply with G1. This whole block we will simplify. That simplification is in the next slide. G2, G3, G4 divided by 1 plus G3, G4, H3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3, G4 divided by 1 plus G3, G4, H3 into H2 upon G4 is equal to, now by doing cross multiplication, this 1 plus G3, G4, H3 and 1 plus G3, G4, H3, they will get cancelled. Therefore final solution we are getting that G2, G3, G4 divided by 1 plus G3, G4, H3 plus G2, G3, H2. Now this will get multiplied with G1. This will get multiplied with G1 here. Therefore we will stop here. Remaining you just solve it on yourself.